Host, we are live and recording.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's our Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 Board of County Commissioners Land Use Meeting and Public Hearing. If you'll all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attorney Garcia, do we have certification of today's agenda?
Yes, sir, you do. County Attorney's Office reviewed all items on the agenda. You have appropriate jurisdiction over these matters, and where necessary, appropriate posting has been made.
Thank you for that. And do any commissioners have disclosures for items on this agenda today?
No, sir. No, sir.
I have none either. With that, we'll move to item 2, our land use meeting agenda items. We have no items for land use today, but we do have items for public hearing in our item number 3. So 3A is a Douglas County zoning resolution amendment to allow accessory dwelling units, project file DR 2024-001. Marco Hyam, is it Hyam? And I don't see Marco here. I see Lauren Pulver, whose name I do know how to pronounce. Hi, Lauren, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Lauren Pulver, representing Planning Resources. The project file number is DR 2024-001 for the proposed zoning amendment. This is a request for a proposed zoning amendment to allow accessory dwelling units with changes to the agricultural 1, large rural residential, estate residential, suburban residential, and definitions section of the zoning resolution. Per zoning resolution section 109, the board shall evaluate the amendment proposal, referral agency comments, staff report, the planning commission recommendation, and public testimony, and shall approve with modifications, table for further study, remand to the planning commission, or deny the amendment proposal. Board of County Commissioners work sessions on the proposed amendments were held in 2024. The amendments were prepared by staff and forwarded to referral agencies for comment. Referral requests are also sent using the county's contact list. Staff further analyzed the request and addressed any issues identified throughout the referral period. After a board work session following the referral period, referral comments and the revised regulations were presented to the board, and the board directed staff to move forward with public hearings. Following published public notice, the request was considered by the Planning Commission at a public hearing. Following the Planning Commission, the request is now heard before the Board of County Commissioners. Staff has proposed a new ADU definition included on this slide that includes guest houses as an ADU. Current guest house use may continue where applicable. ADUs are accessory residential uses, always accessory to an existing principal dwelling use. ADUs may be attached to the principal dwelling unit or be detached from the principal dwelling unit on the same lot. The proposed regulations will not enable further subdivision of a lot. The proposed amendment would allow attached ADUs in SR, ER, RR, LRR, and A1 zone districts. Detached ADUs are subject to minimum lot sizes based on the type of water supply. A 1 acre minimum lot size for a lot served by central water and a septic system. A 2 acre minimum lot size for a lot served by an individual groundwater well and a septic system. SR detached ADUs are allowed on lots greater than 0.5 acres, and ADUs are subject to building codes and other applicable codes. Up to 2 ADUs are proposed to be permitted on A1 zoned lots with at least 35 acres. The second ADU is subject to an additional review process and approval by the board. At the end of the referral period, most referral agencies provided either no comment or no objection. Burning Tree Ranch HOA, Deerfield Community, Grandview Estates HOA, Happy Canyon HOA, and Parkerview Estates HOA commented with concerns. These HOAs requested that the board pause or discontinue the zoning amendment process based on the issues and concerns outlined in their referral response letters. These concerns include increased population density, impacts to rural character, zoning compliance enforcement, impacts to HOA covenants, and impacts to traffic and groundwater. A public workshop was held on December 13th, 2024. 13 people attended representing the Deerfield community, Franktown Citizens Coalition, Parkerview Estates, and other communities in the Franktown, Parker, and Roxborough areas. Attendees asked various clarifying questions and expressed concerns regarding the proposed amendments. Primary concerns included negative impacts to existing rural character, increased use of limited groundwater supplies, increased risk of wildfires, conflicts with private HOA covenants, and limited resources for HOA enforcement, and negative impacts associated with increased rental housing within rural areas. Attendees asked that the county engage in broader community outreach to the rural communities prior to finalizing the proposed ADU regulations and scheduling public hearings. The Planning Commission hearing for these proposed amendments was held on June 16th, 2025. 3 members of the public provided comments in opposition, citing concerns about increased density and growth, impacts to infrastructure, traffic and water supply, and changes to existing rural character. The Planning Commission asked questions regarding impacts to density and zoning enforcement. The Planning Commission commented that broader public outreach is necessary and that the proposed amendments will increase density in a way that is contrary to the comprehensive master plan policies. The Planning Commission recommended denial by a vote of 5-0. The proposed zoning amendments would allow ADUs with changes to the zoning resolution sections described earlier. After evaluating the proposed revisions, referral comments, and staff report, the board may approve with modifications, table for further study, remand to the Planning Commission, or deny. Thank you for your time, Commissioners. Staff is available to answer any questions.
Lauren, thanks for that presentation. Any questions for staff?
No questions.
No questions from me. I will say that I have spent a great deal of time over the last several days and especially since the Planning Commission meeting, asking lots of questions and been satisfactory in those answers received. So thank you for your staff taking that time.
Yeah, I'll echo some comments that, we've been sharing for some time now. And in my mind, this really began out of COVID when many seniors in particular could not avail themselves of any stream of income that would allow them to make money during very difficult times other than their property. And I think as a, private property rights commissioner that cares about making sure that people can use their property as they deem fit, ADUs seem to make sense if some of the mitigating concerns can also be addressed. Based upon the experience in Castle Rock, which did adopt ADUs, to my understanding, the outpour of new applications to have an ADU was around 6. So I don't anticipate that there is going to be a significant overflow of individuals seeking to, build an ADU on their property. Times are tough, the economy's challenging, and it costs money to build an ADU. That said, I'm sure there are some that might avail themselves of this, and I like those individuals being able to avail themselves of opportunities to maximize the use of their property. We often talk about workforce housing and the fact that from a generational standpoint, individuals are aging in place in Douglas County. We have seniors that are continuing to get older, living in Douglas County, can't really afford it. We have young people that started out as little babies, as mine did about 20 years ago, that are now growing up and want to come back to Douglas County, but can't afford to live here because it's just too expensive. If properties can be leveraged in such a way to allow seniors and younger adults to live and work in our county, I think that actually could alleviate some traffic concerns. I do share some question about parking in suburban communities. I think that has been raised in our discussions. But again, I don't sense that there's going to be such a significant flow of new building permit applications that this would be, determinative on that issue. So I'm interested to hear citizen comment, but again, would applaud the leadership of our commissioner colleague, Commissioner George Teal, on working on this, frankly, for the last, several years, I would say. So any additional comment? Let me open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room or online with regard to this issue? Yes, sir, please. If you want to just state your name and where you're from, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Bowles, B-O-W-L-E-S, from Franktown, Deerfield area, and grew up here. The biggest issues that we have right now with this ADU is essentially commercializing residential areas and the Planning Commission said it all there. The way it's proposed right now, without further addressing, is it's wide open to an application for anybody to basically identify and commercialize a private property. And none of myself nor my neighbors or anybody I've spoken to is in favor of this at all. You talk about, well, it has an opportunity for older people, Abe, to have somebody move in and help them. Well, that may sound great. I could see that possibility where you have centralized water, sewage systems, things of that nature. But frankly, I just think it's jamming more density opportunities down on people out in the rural areas that we don't want. We already have traffic issues that are even outside in Elbert County expanding that are creating issues to our lifestyles on the eastern Douglas County, as well as all of Douglas County. But the real problem I see here is there's nothing to be gained. I don't see a gain in offering people rental properties to the existing population. It's all people coming in, and I think there's other avenues that can be addressed on that. The resources are already strained. Every time we talk about the zoning, as the Planning Commission talked about, this overrides any density growth, populations, et cetera. So we're totally against going forward with this zoning, rezoning. And I'll give you an example. We just had a property to go on sale, and before the first people, day 3 that property went on sale, 5-acre lot, the people were in there wanting to build an ADU to rent it to basically make their house payments. That's not the approach we want, because those people that rent, they have no buy-in, they have no skin in the property, the preservation. They're just users and they're gone. And most of them are users and abusers, that type of attitude. They don't care. So that's why I am adamantly opposed to it, and so are many people outside in Douglas County here on that. So that's my 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Any additional citizen comment? Not seeing anyone else in person. Troy, do we have anyone online?
Thank you, sir. I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. So with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, Mr. Bowles, it's always good to see you. We've had several great conversations in my time on the board. Mr. Bowles, here's the reality. When a society forms and tries to live together, you always have to work to differentiate your opinion, the opinion of others, and then come to a consensus on the opinion of the society at large. Obviously, that's probably a task that's easier here at the county level, even though it sometimes might feel harder. But the reality is a lot of thinking is changing on this, Mr. Bowles. And I do appreciate you coming in and expressing your opinion today. We do know there are people who share your opinion on additional dwelling units here in the county. And yet, at the same time, opinions are changing. And it's not just people that are moving in to Douglas County from somewhere far away to be new residents, but it's existing residents who've lived here in some cases for generations. The reality is the change to the A1 regulations around zoning resolution for A1 is merely a change in title, because in our agricultural A1 zone areas, an additional dwelling unit has been allowed. We couldn't even put our finger on when it was first allowed. It's always been allowed. They were just called guest houses or caretaker houses. They were just not called additional dwelling units, even though the simple language is they were an additional dwelling unit on the property. And so all this is seeking to do is help those residents who have a desire to have an additional dwelling unit on the property, have one. The reality is it's not free. Nobody from the county is going to go out there and build it for them. As a matter of fact, we were doing our research on it, and to get an additional dwelling unit for any unincorporated county resident who might be served by Denver Water, and we have those here in the county, it's a $11,000 investment just to get the water tap. And I'm sure, Mr. Bowles, you know what it takes to drill a well. You've been around the county for a little while. You've been a resident here for a while, sir. You know, drilling a well or expanding the depth of a well, it's not free. There's nobody who's going to come over and do that for you. It's an investment that the owner themselves must make. And I think that's where my position on this has always been. Why would the county get in the way of something that a property owner wants to do for the benefit of their property and for the benefit of them being able to capitalize on their property? I'm going to say it out loud. I know it's not the politically correct thing to say anymore, but I'm a capitalist. I think, thank God, America is a place where you can buy something, own it, and that value will accrue over time. This is a merely, as far as I'm concerned, this is a measure that moves forward that helps our residents live in Douglas County better, allow them to capitalize on their property. I really disagree, Mr. Bowles, with the concept that this is commercializing our rural areas. I really take umbrage to it, just due to the fact that not everyone who would seek to build an accessory dwelling unit would wish to commercialize that property. They may still wish it for personal use. But even if they do, so what? The founding of Douglas County was a founding of a commercial area. Anybody who thinks that Douglas County should be a residential area, I know you weren't around a century ago, but if you were around a century ago, that would have been laughable. And I realize that's changed. Anyhow, I do think this is an appropriate measure to take. It is one that we've been working on for several years, Chair. I think you and I, this first came up in discussions maybe 4 years ago, definitely 3 years ago. This is something that we have had many, many meetings about. But Mr. Bowles, despite wanting to address your comments, hey, I really do appreciate you being here. I do appreciate you lending your voice to this discussion. It is a discussion that's gone on for several years now, and I'm quite frankly happy to see it culminate. And I will be very supportive of this resolution moving forward. And if the board pleases, I'm happy to make a motion. If it pleases the board, I do have a motion to approve a resolution adopting amendments to the Douglas County Zoning Resolution, Section 3, Agricultural 1 District, Section 4, Large Rural Residential District, Section 5, Rural Residential District, Section 6, Estate Residential District, Section 7, Suburban Residential District, Section 36, Definitions. Project file is DR 2024-001.
I second the motion, and I do want to preface it with, while you were forming this Douglas County solution to the ADU issue, I was for years at the Capitol fighting state mandates that were frankly brought by Denver legislators that don't know what life is like here in Douglas County. And when I first saw that this would be on the agenda, I kind of got that same feeling in my stomach of, oh no, here we go again. But when diving deeper into the policy, it's clear that this has been crafted specifically for Douglas County and with sincere thought especially for the witness testimony that we happen to get today, and that is testimony that I frankly very much empathize for. And that's where my mind went with kind of the worst fears of where this could be. But it's clear that special care has been made to uphold the private property rights of our Douglas County citizens while also balancing the neighborhood concerns from homeowners associations or from like our witness from Franktown today. By removing planned developments from being a portion of this, protecting the rural nature, as in, like you said, if you have a big 35-acre lot, you can already put a caretaker home, or the other words we've used to describe a home on the property of a large 35-acre lot. I really do think it does uphold the rural nature, and even if you're on well water, which is largely our rural communities, you have to have at least a 2-acre lot, and it can't be anywhere near the borders of your lot. So it can't be really an eyesore to any passerbyers in those rural natures. So especially when it comes to our limited resources such as water, I think care has been taken. I think a lot of thought has gone into this over many years that has brought us to this moment. And I, for one, have gone from being very much opposed to the idea to very much in support of a solution that is Douglas County focused, as opposed to what could be a very Orwellian mandate from the state or the governor of Colorado trying to tell us how we ought to do this in our county. And we've seen that before, and I'm afraid we might see that again. And I think this actually gets us a step ahead to protecting Douglas County from something that could come from outside, especially the Denver area. And so that's why I second the motion, and just a little thought behind why I switched from very much being opposed to this from a state level to being supportive today. And I think that a lot of that goes to the hard work that you gentlemen have put in over the last several years, and the hard work of our staff and team here that have taken all those concerns and put it into a very thoughtful zoning resolution amendment that we have before us today. I could talk all day actually about ADUs and my history with them, but I think long story short, very much oppose the state mandates and the state intervention on them, and support really what seems to be a thoughtful Douglas County solution.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And so we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? I'll just add that I would agree with that. I mean, this is such a perfect example of where we would not want the state to interfere, and I think you were wise to fight those that wished to take over local land use control. But we're here today because of local control, and this board has the really significant onus of making significant land use decisions that would affect our local communities. I'll share as just myself that I have always been deeply committed to the citizens of Franktown from before I was elected, and ensuring that our historic rural communities remain historic, remain rural, is a deep and abiding consideration that I always carry with me, and I have since my service on the Planning Commission. My concern here, and first and foremost, Mr. Bowles, thank you for being here, and I think your comments are well taken, and I definitely hear those. My concern in trying to be a champion for rural landowners is that family that no longer has the means to support a grandma that has dementia, that family that maybe has a child with developmental disabilities, that cannot live off-site. Maybe the cash isn't there to put these individuals in an appropriate care facility, and their only opportunity is the land that they have, and that the land that they've had for generations. My sense is that permitting wise Douglas County citizens to use their properties as they see fit makes sense, because the neighbors that I know in Franktown are neighborly, and they are thoughtful, and they are wise about how they treat one another, and would not create a scenario that would impair the nature of their relationship in the community, because that's significant out there. Everyone knows each other. So for that individual to not be permitted to house family members or care for those that need that sort of care, I think I would be abdicating my duty if I did not create that opportunity for them. So with that, I will be supportive, and again, commend your leadership, Commissioner, in moving this forward. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. With that, we're going to move on to item 3B, which is Douglas County zoning resolution amendments to regulate natural medicine facilities, project file DR 2024-003. Lauren, are you taking this one as well? Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, Lauren Pulver with Planning Resources. The project file number is DR 2024-003 for the proposed zoning amendment. This is a request for changes to regulate natural medicine facilities in the zoning resolution sections of Business District, Commercial District, Light Industrial, General Industrial, and Use by Special Review. Per zoning resolution section 109, the Board of County Commissioners shall evaluate the proposed amendment, referral comments, staff report, the Planning Commission recommendation, and public testimony, and shall approve with modifications, table for further study, remand to the Planning Commission, or deny the proposed amendments. Board of County Commissioners work sessions on the proposed amendments were held in 2024, and the amendments were prepared by staff and forwarded to referral agencies for comment. Referral requests were also sent using the county's contact list. Staff further analyzed the request and addressed any issues identified through the referral period. After a board work session following the referral period, referral comments and the revised regulations were presented to the board, and the board directed staff to move forward with public hearings. Following published public notice, the request was considered by the Planning Commission at a public hearing, and following the Planning Commission, the request is now heard before the Board of County Commissioners. Senate Bill 23290 allows local jurisdictions to enact local ordinances or regulations governing the time, place, and manner of the operation of natural medicine businesses, but does not allow the prohibition of these facilities. Generally, the types of natural medicine businesses allowed under Senate Bill 23290 include healing centers, cultivation facilities, products manufacturers, and testing facilities. At a work session, the board directed staff to draft restrictive regulations while still complying with Senate Bill 23290 to not preclude the use. Healing centers are proposed to be allowed in the business, commercial, light industrial, and general industrial zone districts as a use by special review. Natural medicine cultivation facilities, product manufacturers, and testing facilities are proposed to be allowed in the LI and GI as a use by special review. The proposed amendments regulate time, place, and manner of the operation of natural medicine businesses. This would impose a 1,500-foot distance requirement from schools, state-licensed daycare facilities, churches, parks, libraries, residences, and residential zoning, and municipal boundaries. Healing centers must be within 5 miles of emergency facilities, and zoning verification will be required for natural medicine businesses, and notice is required to the Douglas County Health Department and Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Additionally, natural medicine facilities are limited by hours and days of operation. This map shows the distance buffers applied to the zoning map. You can see there are small areas circled in red along Highway 85 in the northwest part of the county, shown as purple, where the use may be allowed. The referral period ran from January 7th to February 4th. Most referral agencies provided either no comment or no objection. The town of Larkspur requested a 3-mile distance requirement from other municipal boundaries. Staff received concerns from HOAs commenting with concerns for increased criminal activity, zoning compliance reporting, and unintended negative impacts from the natural medicine businesses. Happy Canyon HOA and Pinery West HOA requested at the most restrictive regulations possible. Franktown Citizens Coalition requested that none of the uses would be permitted in Franktown. Staff also received a comment from a business owner concerned with the potential of natural medicine businesses opening near their existing business. 2 potential investors interested in starting natural medicine businesses contacted staff about the proposed regulations and distance requirements. At the post-referral board work session, staff was directed to proceed with the zoning amendment with no further changes. The Planning Commission hearing for these proposed amendments was held on June 16, 2025. No public comments were received. The Planning Commission asked staff if the proposed amendments are the most restrictive possible while still complying with state law, and if the amendments were drafted in coordination with the Sheriff's Office. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a unanimous vote of 5-0. This proposed zoning amendment would allow state-licensed natural medicine businesses in the affected zoning resolution sections referenced earlier. After evaluating the proposed revisions, referral comments, and staff report, the board may approve with modifications, table for further study, remand to the Planning Commission, or deny. Thank you for your time, Commissioners. Again, staff is available for any of your questions.
Lauren, thanks for that presentation. Any questions for staff?
No questions.
No questions for me.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. Let me open it up for any citizen comment, either in the room or online. Is there any citizen comment?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. So with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion or a motion.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would just say, I mean, this is something that the voters of Colorado passed in November of 2022. It was followed up by some legislation trying to put some guardrails around it and give some local control to communities, specifically around zoning. What we have before us today is what that bill largely did. Unlike cannabis sales with Amendment 64, which allowed for local communities to completely opt out, there was no such provision in the 2022 ballot initiative that allowed for that. It did say that psilocybin and the other drugs that would be under question could not be sold for a profit or sold for a monetary value, but the healing centers themselves could not be entirely prohibited by a county or municipality. And that's why we are here today with us, Douglas County Commissioners, and working with our team. And, a lot of thought went into this, not just, it was mentioned, our Sheriff's Department was heavily influential. Also, the Board of Health discussed this topic at great length at a recent meeting as well. So a lot of thought has gone into this to protect the citizens of Douglas County and to see what might be on the horizon, limiting it to largely to one's industrial zone in the northwest portion of Douglas County. I support this, and therefore we'll follow up. I guess this is another topic I could talk on for quite some time, but I won't. I'll simply move to approve a resolution adopting amendments to our Douglas County Zoning Resolution, Section 11, Business District, Section 12, Commercial District, Section 13, Light Industrial District, Section 14, General Industrial District, Section 21, Use by Special Review, Project File DR 2024003, and we'll support that motion if it comes for a vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I do have an abhorrence to the use of these so-called natural medicines, but a great deal of work did go into the preparation of this resolution, in largely to restrict its use here in the county and make sure that it is something that is tightly controlled. So I will second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? I'm interested in this topic as well, and again, to reiterate staff's comments and what we heard at the Planning Commission, this is the most restrictive means possible to accomplish the state mandate, and so we are being the most restrictive. I currently chair the Opioid Council in Douglas County, and we are are really concerned about the opioid epidemic and what's happening in terms of the prescribed medications and the really significant abuses of those medications that have permeated our community, particularly benzodiazepines, which are very difficult for individuals to come off of and can lead to some very dangerous outcomes if people try to withdraw from those too quickly. We have received some reports around some success in the veteran community with the use of psilocybin. In some cases, many of these natural methods are not addictive, they're not long-term, they're not wedding you to the pharmaceutical industry indefinitely. So I remain open to hearing more about some of these natural medicines. One in particular is being pursued by Texas called Ibogaine. And the state of Texas has invested about $50 million into the study and implementation of Ibogaine, particularly as an alternative to some of the medicated assisted treatment, which again is a life sentence to pharmaceuticals. So I'm learning. I don't claim to be an expert on any level, but certainly have about 40 plus really amazing experts that are advising myself and others in the Opioid Council. Again, because this is the most restrictive, I think I will be in support. Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would say we're not going into anyone's home and telling them how they ought to live their lives inside their house. If a veteran or anyone else would like to partake in a psilocybin or any of these others, such as Native Americans have done for quite some time, they can do that. What we're dealing with here today is zoning for the commercial application of the drug. And I think leaning on the side of public safety is the right way to do it, and very much appreciate all the hard work that got us to this point today to find some just areas of Douglas County that, it might be okay. And very, very few and far between, frankly, given the size and scope of our county.
Yes, I would agree with that. Any additional comment? Okay. Seeing no additional comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes. It does not pass unanimously. Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. So that does pass 2-1. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 3C, Levere's Water and Sanitation Utility Easement on DuPont Open Space. Dan Dirtz presenting for staff. Hi, Dan.
Open Space and Natural Resources. We have a pretty straightforward presentation for you today. I'd like to give one of our newest teammates an opportunity to present this project to you guys. So with that, Chase Everly from our Ranger crew will be presenting this.
If there's a mouse.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Chase Everly on behalf of the Open Space staff. Today we're presenting a permanent underground water line easement agreement at DuPont Open Space between us, Douglas County, and Levere's Water and Sanitation District. And the necessity of this project is as listed to improve water quality and delivery for the residents of Levere's. So our process with this project, it was ARPA funds were directed for this project, and following that, we had this project approved by our County Open Space Advisory Committee, as well as the conservation easement holder, who is Douglas Land Conservancy, and as well as maintaining with Parks, Trails, Historic Resources, and Open Space sales tax resolution. We published a legal notice June 12th. Of this year, and we are here today recommending the approval. So this slide just outlines our project location. It is right adjacent to DuPont Park in the township of Leviers. And so, as you can see on our bubble here, we have the exact location just right next to our park. And so this slide depicts our project details. Our area in red that is shown here along First, and then that comes up into the park, is the proposed permanent easement. And this will be a reroute of a water line for the community of Leviers. And the further expanded green area is a temporary license agreement for restoration purposes. So that is going over a bit of a slope there into DuPont Park, and we assume and estimate that they will need to do some back grading and restoration work. And with that, once the project is complete, all of the disturbed areas will be reseeded and returned to their natural state. And to ensure that, language from the existing conservation easement, the license agreement, and the new easement outline our restoration practices. And so the board may approve this easement as staff has followed all requirements in the Parks, Trails, Historic Resources, and Open Spaces Sales Tax Resolution pertaining to the amendment of county-held conservation easements. And furthermore, this project meets the listed objectives of the 2030 Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan. And that will conclude my presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Thanks for that presentation. Any questions for staff? I have none either. Let me open it up for any citizen comment in the room or online with regard to this item.
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Thanks. So I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion or a motion.
Please, the board, I do have a motion to approve the Leviers Water and Sanitation Utility Easement on DuPont Open Space.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, okay. And that carries unanimously. So with that, we'll move on to our final item for today, which is item 3D, a resolution supplementing the 2025 adopted budget for the County of Douglas, Colorado, to recognize new revenues received since annual budget adoption, appropriate restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $67,609,506. Kim Hirsch, Assistant Budget Director, presenting for staff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim
Hi.
Hirsch. I'd like to present to you for your consideration today the third supplemental for fiscal year 2025. As mentioned, the total request before you today is $67,609,506. This will impact 13 funds and will bring the new amended budget for Douglas County to $725,505,227. Within the board's packet, I've included written explanations surrounding all the requests, as well as the fund statements illustrating how each fund spending authority will be impacted and how they can absorb. A few items I'd like to call to the board's attention at this time include the general fund is requesting additional spending authority of $1,087,815, all of which is completely offset 100% with grant revenues received since formal budget adoption. With the county's financial audit complete, the budget team has reconciled the reappropriation schedules presented to the Board of County Commissioners as part of the 25 adopted budget. Additional spending authority of roughly $7 million is required at this time to allow for the multi-year capital improvement projects to continue as planned. Essentially, the projects outlined in your packet did not progress as far along as we thought they would in 2024. Therefore, too little budget was appropriated on January 1st. Other larger items include the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Fund, which is requesting additional spending authority of $2,510,868, again, all of which is offset by new revenues. And the remaining unspent American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funding, is being rolled forward into fiscal 2025 in the amount of $47,625,208. Again, this increase is primarily offset with the new revenues of roughly $42 million. Lastly, $1,461,565 is being transferred from the Road and Bridge Fund into the Local Improvement District, the LID Fund, to cover the initial costs of water, sewer, natural gas, electric, and roadway and drainage improvements that will allow the properties within the LID boundaries to become buildable. This request was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on May 27th, and this last step is simply to appropriate the additional spending authority required to start the project. Again, the total request as presented today is $67,609,506, of which roughly 80%, or approximately $54 million, will be offset with new revenues. So it's basically a one-in-one with the expenses. Thank you for your time. This concludes my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any more specific questions that the board has.
Kim, thanks for that. What's our total budget now?
It's going to be $725,505,227.
Wow. Any additional questions?
I do have one question, and you said it, but could you just state it one more time? How much of the funds were under question today are rollover funds from the ARPA?
We are going to roll forward, I want to say, what was it? $47,625,208.
Okay, well, and I do think that is of a great note and of great credit to those who came before me on the board and to our county management, because so many governments across America went out and blew that money as fast as possible and grew themselves and grew their budgets, and now are facing cuts, even though their budgets are actually even increasing in many cases. But so many governments just spent that money so fast, and to grow the size and scope of their governments, where we here in Douglas County, and I don't deserve any of the credit because I'm new here, those of you that had the ARPA funds under your responsibility deserve a tremendous amount of credit, because as we've seen on our agenda earlier today even, there were many things paid for out of those ARPA funds, not out of the base funds, but out of the interest earned on those funds. And there's been a lot of, those funds have gone not to grow the size and scope of government, but to create great projects for the people of Douglas County to make this an even better place to live, work, raise a family, and to retire. I believe even much of the older adults initiative that we're doing to help our senior citizens here in Douglas County are being paid from that money not being spent, but being saved, and the interest earned upon it is now going to serve the people of Douglas County in a whole new way. And we still here have that $47 million being rolled over once again, and again, more interest being accrued upon it. And so kudos to the management of Douglas County, kudos to the commissioners who came before me, who had the forethought to protect that money and not just blow it like so many other governments we've seen time and time again, and heard those stories time and time again, even from our neighbors around us here in Colorado, and the pain that has brought to them long term. So my kudos to you, and I think it should be highlighted.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and I have no doubt that had you been here, you would have done the same, because I think you share our fiscally conservative philosophies. I was very surprised during that time, and Commissioner Teal, I'm sure you remember this as well, how many governments were paying themselves and paying for using one-time money to fund programs that would have an annual appropriation. It just didn't seem to make sense. But.
Yeah, closing gaps on their debt payments, closing gaps on their payroll. It was our county manager who kept track of that kind of stuff and advised us on it. And yeah, we decided to try to invest in projects that were going to be generational impacts here in the county.
Great. I'm going to open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room or online with regard to this item?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Thanks, Troy. So with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion or a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve this resolution supplementing the 2025 adopted budget for the County of Douglas, Colorado to recognize new revenues received since the annual budget adoption, appropriate, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $67,609,506 even.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries unanimously. That is all of our business for today. The next land use meeting, public hearing, will be held on Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 at 2:30 p.m. We are adjourned.